My name is Carl Shusterman, and I've been an immigration attorney since 1976. As a former INS prosecutor with over 25 years of experience helping immigrants achieve their goals, let me share with you my 10 rules for getting a green card through marriage. Rule number 1, if possible, don't bother with temporary K-1 fiancé or K-3 spouse visas. In my experience, they usually take too long to obtain, and if you use an attorney, and I recommend that you do, you will end up paying twice or maybe even 3 times before you get your green card. Rule number 2, the best strategy is to marry your fiancé in the U.S. and submit all paperwork here. This way, you and your spouse won't have to endure months or even years of separation while your case makes its way through the bureaucracy. Rule number 3, with a few exceptions, foreign-born persons who enter the United States legally and later marry a U.S. citizen may apply to adjust their status to permanent resident without leaving the United States. Rule number 4, when your spouse sponsors you for a green card, you both must submit more government forms than you ever imagined. Those forms include an immigrant visa petition, which includes proof of U.S. citizenship, your marriage certificate, and proof of termination of any previous marriages. The Immigration Service wants all of these documents to be properly certified and translated into English. You also must submit an application for adjustment of status, an application for a work permit, an application for an advance parole travel document, but only if your spouse is admissible to the United States. Also, you must pay filing fees that can be over $1,000. Your spouse must submit an affidavit of support on your behalf, and much more. You get the picture? I mean, this is complicated stuff. Rule number 5, a few weeks later you'll get a receipt. Then you'll be called in for fingerprinting. A few months later, you and your spouse will be interviewed by an examiner from the Immigration Service. Rule 6, at your interview, always tell the truth. Don't volunteer information. When the examiner asks you a question, don't ever guess. You're not a contestant on Jeopardy. Finally, dress appropriately and show respect for the examiner. Rule 7, if your case goes south, it may be because of these 3 little letters, FSP. FSP stands for Fraudulent Spouse Petition. The Immigration Service looks for differences in race between you and your spouse, differences in religion between you and your spouse, large differences in age between you and your spouse, particularly if your wife is older than you are. Is this racist, bigoted, sexist? Absolutely. Is it legal? Yes. So grin and bear it. If the immigration examiner even suspects that your marriage may be fraudulent, you will be subjected to a follow-up interview in which you and your spouse will be interviewed separately. If your answers do not match, the examiner may threaten your spouse with criminal penalties unless he or she withdraws sponsorship and signs a statement under penalty of perjury that your marriage is a fraud. If this occurs, you will immediately be arrested and imprisoned. Anyone who gets involved in a fraudulent marriage is a fool. They are shooting themselves in the foot, or maybe a bit higher, and are probably never going to get a green card. Rule 8, my advice, do it right. Wait until you have been in the United States for at least 2 months before you get married. Don't get married in Las Vegas. Instead, have a religious ceremony if possible. At the very least, have a wedding reception, and make sure your spouse's parents and siblings attend, and whatever else you do, Take dozens of photos. Also, commingle your assets. File joint income tax returns and have joint savings and checking accounts, insurance policies, credit cards, and unless you are living together 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, don't even think about applying for a green card. Rule 9. Should you try to do all of this without the assistance of an experienced immigration attorney? Would you try to do surgery on yourself to save the cost of hiring a physician? These types of questions kind of answer themselves, don't they? And finally, Rule 10. What happens if your citizen spouse dies or you get divorced before you get your green card? Can you still qualify? In many cases, the answer is yes. See our January 2009 newsletter for more information. We keep back issues of all our newsletters online at www.shusterman.com. Lastly, approach this process with patience and humility. Good luck.